Have you ever heard a guitar sound that just hits you square in the chest? I'm talking about that feeling you get when you listen to the Japanese rock band 10 Feet. Especially from their massive hit Die Zero Kan from the movie The First Slam Dunk. It's just this wall of sound. It's explosive, it's emotional, and it's so impossibly huge. I mean, this is the kind of tone that lets a three-piece band sound like an army and fill entire arenas.
So it really makes you wonder, right? How does just one guitarist, Takuma, the band's frontman, create a sound that massive? We're gonna break it all down and figure out how he builds that iconic tone from the ground up. And trust me, looking into this reveals a ton about the art of guitar tone itself. So yeah, let's dive right in.
All right, here's the game plan. We're going to follow the signal chain step by step. First up, we'll nail down what makes the 10 Feet sound so unique. Then we'll check out Takuma's iconic guitars, the amps that make him scream, his surprisingly minimalistic effects setup, and finally, the real secret sauce, the philosophy behind his tone. Okay, first things first. Before we even start talking about guitars and amps, we gotta really understand the sound itself. I mean, what is it that makes 10 Feet sound like, well, 10 feet? It's this incredible blend of power and emotion. And figuring that out really sets the stage for all the gear choices he makes. I mean, just look at this list. It's all over the place, in the best way possible. 10 Feet's music is this insane, high-energy fusion of so many different styles. You'll get aggressive punk 1 minute, then a super melodic pop hook, and then out of nowhere, they'll drop into a reggae groove. So think about it. What kind of guitar tone can do all that? It has to be incredibly versatile. It needs to be heavy enough for metal riffs, but also clear and articulate for the melodic stuff. That right there, that's the puzzle Takuma has to solve with his setup. So how does he actually build a tone that can handle all that? Well, it all starts at the very beginning of the chain, right at the source, the guitar in his hands. For any guitarist, the choice of instrument is, without a doubt, the most fundamental first step in crafting a sound. And for Takuma, there's one guitar that just screams his sound. It's his main weapon, the Gibson Explorer. I mean, you can spot that angular shape a mile away, right? The Explorer is legendary for its powerful, super thick tone, which comes from its solid mahogany body. This thing is the absolute bedrock of that huge sound we're talking about.
But he's not just a one-guitar guy. His arsenal is actually pretty diverse. Along with that Explorer, you'll often see him with a Fender Stratocaster. But, and this is a really key detail, he's modified it. He's swapped out the rear pickup for a humbucker to give that classic Strat sound way more punch. He's also got a Gibson SG in the mix, which is super lightweight and perfect for their high-energy live shows. You can see there's a pattern here, right? Each guitar is picked for a reason, but the main theme is always power and rock-solid reliability.
Okay, so we've got the guitar, but a great guitar is basically just a cool-looking piece of wood and wire until you plug it in. The amplifier, that's the engine of the whole operation. It's where the raw signal from the guitar gets all its power, its character, and its aggression. So the big question is, what's the engine behind Takuma's sound? Now here's where it gets a little tricky. Takuma is actually pretty secretive about the specific amp models he uses, but your ears don't lie. His sound has all the classic signs of a high-gain, British-style amplifier. We're talking about amps that are built to be pushed hard to create that thick, saturated distortion that is just non-negotiable for the kind of rock and punk 10 Feet plays. So if you listen closely to that aggressive, mid-focus tone, the general consensus in the guitar world points towards some true classics. We're probably looking at something like a Marshall JCM 2000 or maybe an EVH 553i. I mean, these are legendary amps in rock music, and they're famous for one thing, delivering that powerful, cutting distortion that defines the 10 Feet sound, but, and this is crucial, without ever getting muddy. All right, so we've got the guitar and we've got the amp, and together they're creating this massive core sound. So what's next? Well, now we're gonna look at the effects pedals he uses to add that final polish. And honestly, his approach here might really surprise you. Yeah, his whole approach is famously direct and super minimalist. You know how some guitarists have these pedal boards that look like spaceship cockpits? Not Takuma. He doesn't rely on a giant board to get his sound. Instead, he just uses a couple of key tools to make his core amp tone even better. For him, less is absolutely 100% more. His whole setup really boils down to just 3 essential things. He's got a distortion pedal, probably just to kick things up a notch for more aggression. Then there's a delay, which he uses to add a little space and atmosphere. And finally, a noise gate, which is super important for keeping all that high gain sound tight and clean. And here's the key thing to understand.
His effects aren't there to totally change his sound. Nope. They're there to control it and to focus it.
And that, right there, brings us to what I think is the most important part of this whole puzzle. Because at the end of the day, the gear is just a bunch of tools. The real magic, the secret ingredient, comes from the player's philosophy. We're talking about the architect behind the sound. So, how does Takuma actually think about his tone?
His number one rule, the most important principle he follows, is all about the mid-range. Think about it. In a three-piece band, you've got drums, bass, and one guitar. The guitar has to find its own sonic space to live in, or it'll just get buried. So by boosting those mid-frequencies, he makes sure his guitar has a voice. It gives it presence, it lets it cut right through the mix, and it stops it from getting lost in the rumble of the bass and the crash of the drums. This is the real secret to that wall of sound we were talking about.
Okay, so his second big rule is basically the other side of that same coin. To keep the whole band sounding clean and powerful, he's really careful with the bass frequencies on his guitar. He keeps them tight and under control. Why? Because that stops his guitar from getting into a muddy fight with the bass guitar for the low-end space. It's like letting each instrument have its own lane. This way, both the guitar and the bass can be super powerful without stepping on each other's toes. It's such a simple idea, but man, is it a brilliant way to get a huge band mix. So let's put it all together. Here's his process. Step 1, he crafts that core tone, getting it just right, straight from the amp. Step 2, he kicks on a distortion pedal when he needs that extra layer of aggression. Step 3, he uses effects, like delay, but really sparingly, just to add a little bit of space when a part calls for it. And then step 4, and this is probably the most important part of all, he just lets his picking do the talking. The way he attacks the strings, his dynamics, that's what's really shaping the emotion and the intensity of the sound. And this right here really gets to the absolute heart of Takuma's sound. Look, the gear is important, for sure. The Gibson Explorer, the Marshall-style amp, the simple effects. That's the canvas he's painting on. But the art, that comes from the player. It comes from his powerful picking, his really smart EQ choices, and just the raw emotion he puts into every note. When it comes right down to it, the tone is in his hands, not just on his pedal board. You know, it just goes to show you, a massive sound doesn't always come from a mountain of gear. What it really requires is a clear vision and, of course, the technique to pull it off. So that leaves us with one last question to chew on, and I want you to really think about this. Whether you're a guitarist yourself or just a massive music fan, what do you think is the most important ingredient in your favorite sound? Is it the gear, or is it the philosophy of the person playing it?